The Vampires of Bayou, Noir, from Dorima Costa. In the heart of Louisiana's forgotten swamps lies the fictional town of Bayou, Noir, a town shrouded in darkness and mystery. Brutal murders, bloodless victims, and rumors of supernatural horrors have plagued this desolate place for centuries. My name is Damon Cordoville, and in October 1892, I embarked on an investigation that led me to confront an ancient evil that lurks in the shadows. This is the chilling account of my encounter with the Vampires of Bayou Noir, a story of terror, loss, and a relentless quest for revenge. As the moonless nights approach, the past awakens and the hunt begins again. Do you dare to follow me into the darkness? My name is Damon Cordoville, and this is the chronicle of the most terrifying hunt I have ever experienced. In October 1892, I was summoned to investigate a series of brutal murders in Bayou Noir, a small and isolated town in the heart of the Louisiana swamps. The victims, all found with their blood drained, bore bite marks that made it clear we were dealing with some deranged maniac. The nights in Bayou Noir were stifling, with the air heavy with humidity and the constant buzzing of insects. The mist rising from the swamps seemed alive, a thick and foul-smelling curtain. The population, mostly composed of poor workers, was terrified. The locals spoke of creatures of the dark, of vampires or something of the sort, but few believed that such horror stories could be real. During the investigation, I discovered that the deaths followed a pattern, always occurring on moonless nights. Witnesses described pale and slender figures moving with supernatural speed. Each crime scene was more disturbing than the last, with signs of desperate struggle and an anguishing atmosphere hanging in the air. One night, while patrolling the town's outskirts, I heard a scream coming from the direction of the swamps. I ran towards the sound, my leg limping due to an old bullet wound, and stumbled upon a scene of horror. A man was being attacked by a shadowy figure. Without hesitation, I drew my revolver and fired. The creature released its prey and turned towards me. Its eyes, glowing like embers, reflected a hellish evil. Before I could react, it disappeared into the swamp's mist. The man did not survive the attack. His lifeless body, now submerged in the swamp's putrid waters, showed the same signs as the previous victims. 2 puncture wounds on his neck, in the jugular area, as if he had been bitten by an animal with sharp fangs. However, he clutched something in his lifeless hands that would prove crucial to my investigation. A medallion with an inscribed crest. It must have been torn from the creature's neck as the victim tried to fend off the deadly attack. This gave us a new lead. While searching the town's old records, I found mentions of a family that once dominated the region. The Belmonts. According to the records, the family had fallen into disgrace after a series of mysterious and tragic events in the early 19th century. The story spoke of human sacrifices in pagan rituals and demonic pacts. Their investigations led me to the remnants of an old Belmont mansion, now in ruins and swallowed by the swamp's vegetation. I began to believe that the locals were right in their suspicions about there really being vampires in Bayou Noir. My search for the truth had not gone unnoticed. The leader of the vampires, upon learning of my investigation, ordered an attack on my house. On a moonless night, the heavy silence was broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant hum of insects. I was in my study, reviewing the records on the Belmonts, when I heard a soft, almost imperceptible sound outside. I stood up, grabbing my revolver from the drawer, and went to check. As I opened the door, a shadow quickly passed by me, and I felt a penetrating cold invade the house. The vampires had arrived. Before I could react, I was attacked with brutal force. One of them pushed me against the wall. My injured leg screamed in pain as I fell to the floor. My daughter, Anna, was upstairs. I heard her hurried footsteps coming down the stairs, and my heart froze with fear. "Papa!" she screamed. "Anna, no! Stay where you are!" I shouted, struggling against the vampire holding me. But it was too late. Another vampire appeared behind her, its eyes shining with an insatiable thirst for blood. She tried to run, but the creature grabbed her, her screams echoing through the house as she fought desperately. In a burst of strength, I managed to free myself from the vampire holding me and fired my revolver, hitting it in the chest. But it was futile. It only recoiled momentarily, the wound closing almost instantly. I ran towards Anna, but I was again restrained, now by two vampires. They were too strong, their arms like steel as they held me. I was taken to the basement, where other vampires awaited. Anna was there, her eyes wide with terror, held between two creatures. "Don't hurt her," I begged, my voice hoarse with desperation. "Do whatever you want to me, but leave my daughter alone." The leader of the vampires, an ethereal-looking woman with icy blue eyes, approached. She looked at me with disdain before turning to Anna. "Your father meddled where he shouldn't have," she said, her voice cold as ice, "and now he will pay the price." She bent down and bit Anna's neck, her screams resonating through the room as her blood was drained. I tried to break free, but it was useless. Tears streamed down my face as I watched my daughter struggle and finally stop moving. The vampires took us through the city's sewers, a labyrinth of damp and fetid tunnels. We were kept prisoners in a dark chamber, where the humidity and the smell of decay were suffocating. We spent hours in that place, fighting against despair and pain. Anna was by my side, her fragile body breathing irregularly. I knew what was happening to her. The signs were unmistakable. The transformation had begun. Hours dragged on as I watched my daughter change. Her pale skin became even more translucent, and her eyes acquired a supernatural glow. She moaned in pain, her body convulsing as the vampire venom coursed through her veins. I was powerless, forced to watch as my daughter became a creature of the dark. "Papa," she whispered, her voice weak and filled with fear. "What's happening to me?" "Anna," I replied, my heart breaking. "You're changing, but I am here with you always." She cried, and I held her, feeling the life drain from her. I knew the moment was approaching, and I prepared for what needed to be done. The pain in my heart was unbearable, but there was no other choice. I couldn't allow her to become one of those creatures. That night, while Anna slept, I took a piece of wood I had found. The faint moonlight filtering through the tunnels illuminated her face. With tears streaming down my face, I knelt beside her. "I am so sorry, my little one," I whispered. my voice broken with pain. I love you more than anything in this world. With a swift and precise movement, I drove the stake into her heart and awoke with a start. Her eyes meeting mine one last time before her life faded away forever. She let out one final sigh, and then all was silent. The weight of my action crushed my spirit. My daughter's body crumbled into ashes before me, carried away by the damp wind of the sewers. My heart was shattered, but I knew I had done what needed to be done. As I still knelt, overwhelmed by despair, I heard footsteps echoing through the tunnels. The vampire leader returned, her cold presence filling the chamber. She looked at the pile of ashes that once was my daughter and smiled cruelly. Look, I didn't imagine you would be able to do this to your own daughter. I think I underestimated you. My plan was for you to serve as food for her, but plans have changed. She grabbed my neck with one hand and lifted me into the air. Her hand crushed my windpipe. Do you think you're going to die, Cordoville? No, I have a better end prepared for you. As she finished her sentence, she sank her teeth into my jugular. A sharp pain coursed through my body as I felt my blood being drained. Now, you bastard, you will have to live eternally in suffering for what you did. She threw me to the filthy floor of that place and left. The pain was unbearable. I felt my life slipping away as the vampire venom spread through my body. I woke up days later, different. I had become what I fought against. The thirst was almost maddening. After days of torment in the sewers, feeding on the blood of rodents, I found a passage that led me back to the surface. Weak and debilitated, I crawled to my house, now an empty and somber place marked by tragedy. It was there that I planned my revenge. I gathered a team and, armed with wooden stakes and silver bullets, we ventured to the mansion during the next new moon. Our approach to the Belmont mansion was made in silence, our steps muffled by the thick vegetation and the mist covering the swamp. The building was in ruins, with ivy-covered walls and the roof collapsed in several parts. As we drew closer, it felt as if the mansion itself were alive, watching us, waiting for our next move. The dim light cast upon the structure was enough to reveal the grotesque silhouette of the building. We were a small force, an elite team of brave men who knew the dangers we faced. We carried wooden stakes, silver bullets, and vials of holy water, aware that each tool could be the difference between life and death. We entered the mansion through what remained of the main door. The entrance hall was filled with debris, with old furniture and rubble scattered across the floor. The air was thick, laden with a putrid smell that turned our stomachs. The silence was absolute, interrupted only by the occasional sound of something moving in the shadows. I led my men through the dark corridors, our footsteps echoing softly against the stone walls. In one of the side rooms, we found ancient arcane symbols carved into the walls, remnants of pagan rituals that bore witness to the dark past of the Belmont family. The tension was palpable. Each shadow seemed to hide a lurking enemy. Finally, we reached a large underground hall, lit only by flickering candles. The atmosphere was oppressive, with ritual symbols drawn on the floor and walls. In the center of the hall Surrounded by a circle of candles were the Belmont vampires. Their eyes gleamed in the dim light, reflecting hatred and an insatiable hunger. "Prepare yourselves," I whispered, my voice laden with determination. "They must not leave this place alive." The vampires moved with supernatural speed, advancing on us in a blur of shadows. The battle began with an explosion of violence. Wooden stakes found their targets, but the strength of the vampires was overwhelming. "Stay together," I shouted. "Don't let them isolate you." John, my second in command, turned to me, sweat streaming down his face. "Damon, there are too many. We can't do this." "We can and we will," I replied, driving a stake into an advancing vampire. "Remember what we're fighting for." The creatures moved with terrifying agility, their eyes blazing with hatred and thirst for blood. My men fell one by one, their screams echoing through the hall as the vampires attacked mercilessly. Every movement was a dance of death, with blood and shadows intertwining in a scene of pure horror. Amidst the attacks, I heard the voice of a vampire leader, her words dripping with arrogance. "You dare to challenge us? This town will pay for what they did to the Belmonts." She advanced on me, her speed and strength astonishing. I managed to dodge her blows, moving with a semblance of her agility, but not matching it. I searched for an opening. Finally, with a swift motion, I drove a stake into her chest. She let out a sharp scream, her eyes locked onto mine as her last words escaped her lips before her death. "Damon, how is your daughter?" I heard her blood was so sweet. I took another wooden stake and drove it into her heart, the creature that had emerged from the depths of hell returning there reduced to ashes. The killings ceased, but Bayou Noir was never the same. The scars of our struggle remained, and the town's inhabitants avoided the swamps at night for a long time. As for me, for over 2 centuries, I have carried the memories of those dark days as a heavy burden, constantly reminded that darkness can lurk even in the most unlikely places. I live day by day, waiting for the return of the Belmonts. As the vampire leader promised before dying, we will come back to life for our vengeance against this cursed town. And as I wait, I am ready to protect Bayou Noir once again, tirelessly watching the shadows. The memory of Anna, my daughter, guides my determination. My vengeance and my duty are now eternal, until the last shadow of the Belmonts is extinguished.